all the social networks are trying to be television networks. Apps now have their own, or even brands have their own production companies. Like everything's a TV, and like with gaming, and even to what you said, Ben, and like exactly what you said, James, is that like gaming in a lot of ways is like a group chat. Like, yes, you are playing this thing, but like ultimately, like gaming isn't the TV. Gaming is a group chat, and like this is just another way to activate the group chat, whether it's a group chat with people geographically around you or people in a similar sort of like taste or drive in the world or expression of culture. Like it comes through it as games. Like I think it even dovetails into like what we talked about last week about like the quote unquote death of the photographer. Like photography now is like it's not photography anymore. It's more of just like a way of looking in a way. And like that's just like you're sharing the binoculars in a way. And like I think that there's something that can be had about sort of like recategorizing a lot of our culture now between like this is a TV, this is a sort of like group chat, this is a sort of like picture book.
Enter the 36 chamber of hip replacement. Sorry, that was a Wu-Tang joke for my the benefit of series producer Campbell, who has grown up on the Wu-Tang Clan. We are here, Kyle, with James Whatley, the advertising strategist and writer of the 5 Things on Friday newsletter, and seer of the how to describe it, intergenerational conversation between demographic and marketer. Sorry, James, I realized we didn't rehearse that description, but that was just what came to me.
Didn't rehearse that? Really? Get out of town.
So James is calling in from London, where he is not celebrating Thanksgiving this week, and so had time to talk to us. Thank you, James, for being here. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. I'll be a Thanksgiving stand-in any year.
I love that. Lovely. I love that. Kyle, one of the things that we were talking about off mic was that James uses 5 Things on Friday, which it was a newsletter that I discovered a few years ago, and I don't exactly know how, but through some sort of mutual recommendation, as a means of thinking out loud. And I know that you were nodding along to that. I certainly nod along to that because that's very much what Sick is, my newsletter, also what hip replacement is, I think, in a lot of respects, right? A ways for us to work out our ideas in public. And James, I wanted to immediately get into topics this week because one of the stories that you shared, I would say, fits very much into that mold, and that was millennial queen Charlie XCX and her most recent Substack post about being an artist. That one, which is a couple thousand words and goes to great detail and does a bunch of interesting stuff. What was it about that one that jumped out at you as being a story of the week, so to speak?
I really like creativity. Hi, of course we do. But actually the different expressions of creative writing, drawing, thinking up new ways to rearrange your house. That is an expression of creativity. Am I an artist in doing that? I don't know. What I really enjoyed was, yes, there's all these great things about being a pop star, all these bad things about being a pop star. Oh, it's so difficult having your friends bring you down to earth every now and then. But what was really, and it's easy to do, right? It's easy to do that, fun. But what I enjoyed was there was a moment of self-introspection of going, what am I? And she arrived at as an artist, doing artistry, and I was like, okay, that's cool. What does that mean? And then just did a sideways stint into an old 5-minute interview with Lou Reed where he just winds up the Australian press, which is wonderful. And she said, I just love this because it's funny. And to her, that was artistry because you're just messing about. And in my line of work, you work with influencers, you work with creators, you work with creatives, you work with people who want a really good creative idea, you work with people who want something to go viral. And whether I'm working at Ogilvy in London or Publicis in New York, everyone's kind of chasing the same thing. Some people are happy when they get out of the day on the drum. Cool. Some people just want to push their medium a bit further. On that spectrum of artistry, I enjoyed where Charlie XCX kind of arrived at. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just knowing that I'm trying to push things forward where I am at.
Right.
And as a creative provocation to take back into your workplace, what am I doing? What's the impetus of driving me forward? Yeah, I've got to hit the KPIs for this brief, but actually, am I trying to move things forward with this work that we're delivering?
Right. Got it. It's interesting. That was not necessarily the take that I expected. I like it a lot. And
where did you get to, Ben?
Well, it's not even so much that as I think you've elevated the intent, and as you know, that is turning on a strategist brain and going like, what is the motivating intent here, in a way that I think was great and accurate. The thing that I was struck by was the deftness with which, and I think Charlie, generally speaking, does a good job of this, with which she illustrated the fact that as an artist, you are still nonetheless a person, and so you have the push-pull of the sublime and the mundane on a minute-to-minute basis, in the same way as most people do, irrespective of their lines of work or their extractions, or at least many of the people that we are fortunate to know. So I thought that was cool, and I appreciate it, and I like her being mask off about it. I had a funny story about the Lou Reed post too, though, which is in parallel to it. I this is many years ago, probably 20 years ago now, went to a screening of a movie at Soho House in New York. This is when there was only one Soho House, and it was still highly exclusive. And this was a preview for members or whatever. And Lou Reed was in the line for the screening. And as we walked towards the back of the line, we walked past Lou, and the guy that was talking to him, as we walked past, he said to Lou, "So Lou, why'd you switch to Verizon?" And I was like, I didn't hear. I mean, Lou started to be like, "Well, I like," and he started to answer it in a considered fashion. And as I walked past, I was like, "Why does Lou Reed even know where his cell service comes from? This is a god among men. Why would he be aware of that?" And the thing that I thought was funny about this Charlie post was she was just like, yeah, like sometimes riding in limousines and yelling out the top and all that cliched shit, as she said, is awesome. And other times it's just like you're in these liminal spaces where you have to contend with it. I that was the part I like. Kyle, you're a Charlie guy. You're a Charlie watcher in any case.
I am a Charlie watcher. I am a OG Charlie fan. I interviewed her like in 2012. Like, I go way back, and it's not trying to flex, but like I was like a big fan, and I had an opportunity to interview her, and I did, and she was great. So like it goes deep, and this era of Charlie, I think, is very interesting. It is very millennial. It is very mid-30s, which I think is a key thing. And I think to both of these points, like, it is... strategic is maybe the wrong and right word for it, because, like, it's a great idea. It's a really sort of, like, makes you think, whether you are a capital T thinker or a lowercase t thinker, whatever you want to call that. But it literally reads much differently to see that on Substack versus like that's a TikTok video or an Instagram story. And like that textual difference and that sort of like context and connotation automatically, which is why a lot of people go to Substack and why a lot of people like engage with the newsletter world, is because it's sort of a shorthand for intellectualism. Whether the writing is good or bad doesn't matter sometimes. Whether the sort of idea it is good or not doesn't matter. It is oftentimes like, are you at the top of the leaderboard of thought today? And that's what she's doing. And that's really interesting to me. And like, I think that is a really cool thing for an artist to do. It then conjures up a lot of other discussions about then, say, the working normal person who is a creative, who is on Substack, who did sort of start their thing by their own, as brands and as celebrities start to infiltrate the platform, and like those creators start to become decentered. And like that is a larger theme that's happening across social media. And like to me, it's like I do think it's good. I did enjoy it. Is it like the revolutionary writing of the year? By no means. However, like I do think it's a larger statement of sort of the state of digital power in a way. And like that was really interesting to me, because it's like, this is so exciting. We're all here with you, Charlie. And the other, and it's like, well, fuck, now I have to compete with Charlie XCX. Like it's done, man.
Yeah, but you were always competing with Charlie XX. I mean, this is the thing. And James, I mean, you spend your days inside a, you know, big consumer company that serves kids primarily, although it is an intergenerational audience. We have talked on this podcast previously about how, you know, chewing gum fell off a cliff in the early 2010s because of the rise of ringtones. Like essentially disposable income moved from one format to another, right? In terms of where kids were spending their dollars. I would imagine you've got to be thinking about like, what is the total competitive set or the total spending landscape a lot. And in that regard, Kyle, we've always been competing with Charlie XCX, right? Or
that's true.
I mean, it's always been the case, though. I mean, I remember having this conversation. There was social media director Ogilvy Mather London in advertising, and somebody was saying, "Well, we've got to compete with these other brands, you know, to appear on a Facebook feed. We've got to compete with these brands." I'm like, "You're not competing with brands. You're competing with a picture of someone's nan's birthday party. You're competing with the Gaga fan page you just subscribed to. You're competing with your best friend trying to get you an invite to a party. And then maybe you might get a glimpse of half a second. Versus, what about our category? What about out of category? No, forget all of that. There's like a 6-inch piece of glass in someone's pocket that you are hopeful to be spotted on.
Yeah.
And that might be on the back of a bus. It's not going to be like on a 70-inch TV where the 4K ad we just shot is going to look amazing. It's like, it's going to be a cut down, my guy, and you're going to be lucky if they see it at all.
Right. Well, and I mean, to my mind, that's the sort of thing that I think is interesting, right? And it gets a little bit to the duality of the post for me. Like on the one hand, it is not something that feels super tactical in like, I need to get into this new thing, or I need to elevate my intellectualism. I think there would have been more paragraph breaks if she was more serious about being a Substack writer, et cetera, right?
Or more paragraph breaks if she put it on LinkedIn. I mean, can you imagine? This is a LinkedIn post.
No, that's next. That's next.
Well, I mean, and really that is kind of the question too. Like, why didn't Charlie XCX break straight into LinkedIn? But I love that. Charlie XCX on LinkedIn, that would be great. What it does do is that it does get into an incremental expansion of the Charlie XCX's world, and that ties to a story that I sent to you guys from Creative Block this morning about how Gen Alpha is changing the way brands are marketing to people. And James, obviously, you being in the space, I wanted to ask you about this in particular. That story contends that in order to build successful marketing strategies for Gen A, you have to think about from a world building standpoint, right? Clearly, you know, if you think about some of the campaigns that you have been successful for, but then also things that work well in gaming, which is a space that I want to talk to you about, and also in this, you know, day-to-day work, world building has to be a big part of it. Like, how do you, is that something you think about, or is that just something you sort of do and manifest at this point, you know?
So I'm not going to spend my entire time talking about Ogilvy. I was there my longest in my career, 7 years. And for 5 of the 7 years I was there, I wrote the annual trends report. I co-wrote it with another great guy called Marshall Manson. And we wrote it together. Every year we published it, we reviewed our predictions from the year before and publicly judged ourselves whether or not we got it right or not. Then we talked about what was coming. And the things we used to do on that was always like, right, what's driving this trend? How do we define this trend? And then what 3 things should you do, client, about these things? And And I remember we did one around generations. We did one around millennials versus Gen Z, talking about this, talking about that. And I had a whole thing around behaviors versus demographics. And you've definitely had this argument before where demographics, whatever, behaviors is what I'm interested in, because you could be a millennial mindset or you could be Gen Z coded, but your age is all over the place.
Right.
Throughout that research and work that I did, the one thing I kept coming back to is like from the advent of the social media revolution through to like blanket 4G, 5G networks, through to this world-building gaming now being a cultural acceptance, an accepted part of our cultural tapestry, all of that stuff. Wonderful. You've got ad campaigns turning up in Roblox. You've got my kids going to see the Minecraft movie at the cinema, then coming home and playing the Minecraft world on Roblox, which are like head explodes.
Right. Yeah.
But it's that letting go of your IP enough, having the confidence to go, it's cool to go away and do that. For me, platforms change, behaviors don't. And yes, while I agree world building is important to Gen Alpha, you're fundamentally still talking about your basics of how you're building brand awareness, how you're building consideration, and ultimately how you're building that conversion. And so if they are in different platforms today than they were yesterday, the platforms that millennials were in 10 years ago, Gen Zs are in now, Gen Alpha will be in tomorrow. Yes, we're doing role building because that's where they are. And Gen Beta, poor guys, when they come along, I mean, you gutted, right?
There's going to have to be a change. They'll get rebranded. They'll get rebranded.
But when that happens, whatever thing they're inhabiting, it'll be cool. We got to change everything we're doing. It's like, well, I think the principles that we all agree on are going to stay the same.
I mean, that's like a basics of communication. I mean, like like people talking to each other and doing these sorts of things is sort of as old as speaking, which is sort of like, it gets at what we sort of just talked about with writing, is that like, yes, you could be little Joey in, Florida, or Charlie XCX, or fucking Joan Didion, or whoever. And like the words all can look the same. Like they are going to make spelling errors. Others might, AI might, whatever. So like there's only so much you can do. The stress test of that sort of world building, advertising, whatever you want to call it. It's the same as writing, same as art, all these sort of stuff. And I think there are means to reinvent it, because I think the platforms sort of demand you to think that way, when ultimately it is reskinning older conversations just because, certain clients are buzzing about this and you need to tell them what they want to hear. But ultimately, it's not that new. Like,
sure. Well, okay, so I agree with that, but I wonder if there's something a little bit, if there is something characteristic that starts to come out in Gen Z, maybe even, older audiences, but certainly as far as Gen Alpha goes. I went to a discussion that the writer W. David Marks put on Thursday last week, which talked about, okay, he's written this cultural history of the 21st century, which is, does a pretty thorough job of explaining all of the things that have happened, many of which aren't great, to culture. And so this symposium that he convened was like, okay, well, what are we going to do about it? And, just like a little salon type of thing. One of the stories that one of the writer Reggie James, the writer venture capitalist founder Reggie James, brought up gaming as being a platform that we hadn't in the group really talked about too much. Mm-hmm. And it reminded me that series producer Campbell, when he was a younger man, would very frequently be playing Call of Duty with a bunch of his friends, both his intimates and his these kind of strangers, having an active conversation about stuff going on in the world, as well as like what a bitch everybody else on the game was for messing up the one shot or whatever. But anyway, so he's having an active conversation while playing a game, while in one of his ears listening to a YouTube video of some podcast about something totally different. And I was just like, it feels to me like there's a level of understanding, or at the very least a vernacular happening here that is new. Mm-hmm. And I wonder, James, I feel like you're kind of at the coalface for that, both as a somebody who writes about games and also as somebody who's now dealing with, let's call it, these play environments. So I wondered if you'd reflect on that.
It's funny. I was talking to Mara previous guest of yours literally about this today. We had a call about something else, and we were talking about something else, and I was like, oh, that reminds me. The reason I work in gaming, in inverted commas, I work on the outskirts of it because I work on gaming marketing strategy, is about 5 years ago. And I say this with all acknowledgement of who we are and what we look like. I got really bored of white strategy Twitter, specifically white male strategy Twitter. And there's like someone going, oh, it's the long of it. No, it's the short of it. Oh, no. Well, it's in the day. It's like, can you just stop? Just stop. And I thought I couldn't weigh in and argue with them because I look exactly like them, especially with the beard as well. It's a British thing. It's like there's always a white bearded Brit in your planning department in New York, right? Always.
That's right. That's exactly. But you can't do it without it.
Right.
Exactly.
Lights won't turn on.
And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start writing about games because I know games. I love games. I understand why they're important. And if I'm lucky, I might get a gaming client. We won PlayStation at Ogilvy, and then I went to Digitas and did a bunch of work with EA and with Xbox. And then I got a job at a small agency as a chief strategy officer running like global campaigns for similar, right? Activision, PlayStation, and so on. And so I've always been at the top of that, to your point, going, right, this is important now. And I think the US has definitely been ahead of this when it comes to cultural acceptance. The UK is finally getting there. We've been kind of lambasted in the press by headlines saying Call of Duty caused my son to do this, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened.
Right.
But you're like, it delivers X amount of money to the economy every year. Like it made more money than Harry Potter last year. Do you know what I mean? It's like all these little things that make sense.
Right.
And it's only really, and this is obvious, but it's only really when COVID happened did the positive stories start to come out, where parents would be interviewed and say, well, I've just listened to my kids chat on Fortnite and just check in with each other.
Yeah.
And you're like,
yeah, fully.
Like, because one of the things we saw, there's no online or offline. It's just my friends group.
Right.
My friend group is in the playground, or my friend group is who I'm playing quads with. And watching my own kids do this, I've got an 11 and an 8-year-old. Watching my own kids do this with each other, it's great. Learning, but still friendship groups, and they keep each other's in check. Like, hey, you can't be saying that. That's not cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like, awesome, well done, good.
I don't know that I've ever heard that. By the way, just
they self-police a little bit, yeah. And to me, I encourage it. I'm also like really mindful of taking care that they're safe and everything. And
Right.
of course, really, really tight on it. But there's a thing going around at the moment. I saw it today on like me using my World of Warcraft skills in a job interview. Yeah, I'm really good at leading a team. I'm really good at taking orders, and it's like I can get my tools ready for when I'm ready to go, kind of stuff.
I love that.
And I think it was a TikTok, and I was like, yes, because my drug of choice when it came to gaming was Destiny 2 for so long, and I put thousands of hours into that game. But on a raid, there's 6 of you playing a raid, and yes, you can have a chat between here and there. But when it comes to a boss fight, you've got to deliver DPS in the window that you've got to do it. About 10 people listening will understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm fully lost.
Damage per second.
Okay, got it. Okay.
In the small window that you've all triggered, you've all got to jump. It's like communication skills have got to be there. You've got to bring everyone on their journey. Time management skills. You've got to all be there at 9 p.m. on a Friday night.
Right.
No matter what.
Right.
So all of those, when I talk about culture importance, yes, I talk about I think about it showing up in TV. Yes, it's showing up on cereal boxes. Yes, it's showing up in music videos. But I also talk about it showing up in day-to-day life, in culture, in TikToks, in people just having open conversations about it versus, did you see the game at the weekend? What have you been playing on Friday? That conversation shifts. Seeing that happen in the time that I've been working in and around games has been the most amazing cultural shift I think I've witnessed when it comes to gaming as a concept.
Right. It's really interesting because like everything you just said, and I think a lot of people intellectually know this, and maybe people outside of gaming or any sort of casual understanding of gaming maybe just don't know this, but like to me it sort of gets at this conversation that is being had, and I don't think it's not new. It's like, everything is a TV now, meaning that like, all the social networks are trying to be television networks. Apps now have their own, or even brands have their own production companies. Like everything's a TV, and like with gaming, and even to what you said, Ben, and like exactly what you said, James, is that like gaming in a lot of ways is like a group chat. Like, yes, you are playing this thing, but like ultimately, like gaming isn't the TV. Gaming is a group chat. And like this is just another way to activate the group chat, whether it's group chat with people geographically around you or people in a similar sort of like taste or drive in the world or expression of culture. Like it comes through it as games. Like I think it even dovetails into like, what we talked about last week about like, the quote unquote death of the photographer. Like photography now is like, it's not photography anymore. It's more of just like a way of looking in a way. And like, that's just like, you're sharing the binoculars in a way. And like, I think that there's something that can be had about sort of like recategorizing a lot of our culture now between like, this is a TV, this is a sort of like group chat, this is a sort of like picture book, and this is that. And like, I think like a lot of how we're operating in culture is like, we're using very different things to do very similar things, if that makes sense.
Yes, sort of. I guess the transmogrification of one medium to another totally makes sense. And also the false equivalency of one medium to another also it makes sense and is interesting. The one thing that strikes me about something you said a second ago, James, ties to another of the articles that you posted, and I wonder where this fits in as a vector. Also, you talked about like using your World of Warcraft skills in a job interview.
Yeah.
The idea
Mine
that
specifically, by the way, I've never touched.
No, I understand. I understand. You get your jobs through your Fortnite skills. What I was going to say is that like that, transference of experience, I think, is really interesting and very apropos to the current moment, right? Where certification can come from so many different sources. What I thought was interesting, though, is in the story that you sent from CNBC about how Chinese influencers are going to need qualification to talk about certain subjects, is just to what extent we need a threshold like that. So this piece, I'll just read something very quickly on it. Chinese influencers must now have a qualification to talk about certain topics like law and medicine. The regulators said on Tuesday, because there has been a push for greater control as Beijing sees influencing society over areas Beijing sees as influencing societies, including video games, live streaming, celebrity culture, and it lays out a code of conduct for online influencers. Suffice it to say, based on the number of like $5 a month classes I could find on YouTube, or weird supplements that I could take, or Chinese peptides that I could import, like some level of qualification or certification is definitely necessary. But I wondered, did you look at this from the standpoint of like, yes, this is a step in the right direction despite its origin with the Chinese state, or here's an example of overreach or something else?
Now I want to.
Or did you start thinking I want to start certifying people basically as an expert?
By the way, you can't publish this until you've been certified.
Right.
No, I mean, hold on. We've done our time in white strategy Twitter context, to be able to do this.
For added context, me sending you that was in response to the Kelly Catrone links that you sent me, where she was going, saying, I work in fashion. I don't care about you as an influencer. You probably have. I watched that and I was like, I kind of get it. Like if you spent your 20 years career, I've since gone on and researched more into as a Brit TV watching Brit. I had no idea who she was, and I watched all the stuff in the hills between you sending me the links and now. Went, okay.
Yeah, she's the one woman on TikTok.
I get it.
The TikTok video that you sent, Kyle, in response to it, where the woman said, I can't remember a time when Kelly Catrone wasn't in fashion. I mean, that's when I came to New York in 1998, Kelly Catrone was in fashion. So
I watched a clip of her going, she's part of the cry. Go somewhere else and cry.
Yeah.
And then
come outside. No crying in the office. We have a no crying in the office policy.
I used to work for someone like that and she was horrendous. Anyway. So when you said about, I watched that clip of her going, I work in fashion. I know what this is. I know what she's talked about corsets for a bit, and then she talked about something else. Like, I don't know, I'm not an expert. And like, I'm purposefully ignorant about these things because I don't need to know them.
Right.
Therefore, I would not go out and just say, I'm now an expert on this thing. Here's everything I know, because I've not done anything. One of the response videos that you also sent was somebody having a go, but his intro to that having a go was, I've been doing this for 10 years, so here's my clapback. I'm like, mate, that wasn't for you then, because you've been doing it for 10 years. She's not talking to you.
Sure. Fair.
And then I was like, what's the extreme edge case of this? Oh, yeah, the thing in China. And I think when it comes to, and we saw this with, again, with the pandemic, people saying, this drug will kill you, this drug won't kill you, do this, don't take this, have the jab, don't have the jab, Matters of public health, driven and delivered by science. Like, yes, please. I don't want people being able to say whatever the hell they like without going, this is not backed by science.
Right, sure.
That's a personal opinion of where I land on the moral calendar of like what therefore should be right and wrong. It's also not me saying, I'm caveating the hell to this, by the way, to go, yes, I agree with the Chinese government. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Right.
Specifically on that matter, I thought it was a very interesting take, given the implications on public health that it could have.
Yes. Yeah. Well, no, look, I agree completely. It's interesting, right? Like Twitter, we didn't share this in the links, but Twitter announced last night that they are introducing a feature called About This Account that allows users to go deeper into what the origin of and what the potential motivations or ulterior motives of these articles are. I think, look, it's not a bridge too far to say that none of us agree with the Chinese government on many things. I wouldn't think. I don't want to speak for you guys, but I think that's probably a safe guess. Yeah. But it is credit where credit's due.
Right.
Mom Donnie in the White House office with Trump voice. You have to call balls and strikes, and you have to say, all right, this is actually a thing that makes sense. What I wonder about is at what point we get back into the who gets to decide and the appropriate return of gatekeeping.
Well, we have this in the UK, right? So we have the CAP code, we have the Advertising Standards Association, and we have the CMA, so the Competition and Markets Authority. The CMA is badly named because the CMA does more than Competition and Markets Authority. When the ASA and CAP code, that's our self-governing within the advertising industry. And when that falls over, the CMA, which is a government body, steps in. And I would like to say I predicted this, but I've kind of predicted this because the ASA doesn't have any teeth, right?
Right.
And rightly so. The more I've got to understand the ASA, it purposefully lives in a grey area to encourage creativity. If it's black and white, then there's going to be an edge all the time. So, but if you put up a Facebook ad, so if you pick up a video on Facebook and you're saying, this phone is wicked, you should all buy this phone, and you don't tell people that was a paid ad, then the ASA will look at it and then 9 months later tell you to take it down and you can't post it again. But it's been too late, right? It's happened.
Yeah,
right. The CMA will come in and say, right, we've investigated 12 influencers. None of you are allowed to do this, and you have to sign a piece of paper legally saying you'll never do it again. Wow. Which actually happened. So rules around not disclosing that you've been paid to say something already exists, right? I'm pretty sure the FCA do something similar in the US. FCA? Am I getting my terms right?
I think that's right.
FCC, damn it, it's been a while.
Close, yes.
Yes, same thing, right? So they're different levels on the same spectrum, where the Chinese government's saying you can't talk about medical issues unless you are a degree in medicine. We're not saying that you can't talk about trousers or pants unless Kelly Catrone comes to your house and gives you a wink. Do you know what I mean? It's like that's the other end of the spectrum.
A course on corsetry,
right? Yeah, exactly.
And then you can do it.
But there's a middle ground. And you've got a. I quite liked her point of view, but the extreme of it is the Chinese element. But you can see how they got there.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know, Kyle. I mean, at what point did you feel like you became expert enough to issue the trend report?
That's a great question. I think
I'm being facetious, of course, because
right.
you didn't, I presume, decide, okay, I've turned my birthday expertise, and so now I can do this.
Exactly.
But like,
I mean, I think
at what point do you self-qualify?
Totally. And I think that we all probably have similar things. Because like I started doing mine, James mentioned this before the podcast, but like I have a similar origin story in that like it's a way to help me think and work through my own problems. And like I think oftentimes like I'm writing about myself or writing through an own experience, even though it's sometimes impartial. Sometimes you see me directly as the protagonist of that essay or whatever. Other times I'm a bit removed. But like it's often I'm critiquing myself or working through something culturally as with me and as a center. And that was something I was doing in other jobs I've been doing for a long time. And that's not the qualification bit. But like it was something that I was sort of doing. Like it was never sort of designed to be read by thousands of people or hundreds of people. It was always like at the end of the day, it's like it's for me. Like I'm going to do it regardless. But within that process, which I think is something that we all probably can relate to, is like that credibility started to get built in. And I think that only started happening, or even considering myself to be, let's say, a source, resource, someone to cite, when that started to happen. And like when like journalists or writers or whoever would reach out to me for a comment on something, and I was like, well, why are you talking to me? And then it was like, okay, well, I guess that's like I have entered a new sort of like stage in what this is, and that inadvertently like created a qualification. Like I guess like you're building something even though you don't know what it is, and like you step away and people are like, I love that house. It's like, whoa, you built a house or a museum or whatever. Yeah. And it's like that I think is the joy of the internet. And to that point, it's like that is what that expertise is. I don't know, but like I which is to say that like I wouldn't go on record like Kelly Catrone and say, well, you can't do this because you don't do that, because like it's such in the culture space. Like
Charlie XCX should not be writing without paragraph breaks. I'll tell you that
exactly.
much right now.
Like, maybe I can make
that
critique,
influencer,
sure, but...
you know.
But our job, and we're all strats, right? So our job is truth, right? Our job is truth.
Fair.
And clarity, right? How you bring clarity to business problems, consumer problems, category problems, world problems. How do I get it down to one killer PowerPoint slide that tells you that the creative you're about to see is immediately viable? I deck for a living, but the whole point.
True.
But the whole point of what we do is truth, and again, we're coming back to Charlie XCX again, because her point was around people expect you to be true all the time. But, sometimes you want to be fantasy, but actually we can't really afford to do that. That's not our realm. Mm-hmm. And Kyle, your credibility you've been talking about is built on your search for truth.
True.
Right? You're finding, here's the thing, I want to get to the bottom of the thing, mm-hmm. and then I want to explain why that's now a thing. I used to work with Richard Huntington, who was very recently chair and chief strategy officer at Saatchi & Saatchi London, and he used to say client services pay to stay on top of things, strategists are paid to get to the bottom of things, and so never the twain should they meet. And I was like, no. I mean, it's fun, I get it, but fine. And to me, I was like, okay. When I'm mentoring the young bright things in our industry, I'm always saying, go the extra click. What's the thing you're going to do one step further that the other person reading this article or writing this trend report isn't going to do? Mm-hmm. That's going to make your difference. And Kyle, I think that's what you do. Like your search for truth has helped you build that credibility.
Absolutely. I love that. I think we're all doing that.
Yeah, well. it's funny. I guess... No. Well, Kyle, guys, I'm reflecting on myself here. Like, am I living up to this incredibly, portentous description that James is this, reflected? It's certainly true of you, Kyle. Whether it's true of me is a whole different.
It
discussion.
is very true of you.
Oh, quit it!
It
Flattery
is true.
Will get you guys everywhere, as always. But one thing that I did think that was interesting about the notion of that qualification is the ways in which people who are not qualified by any description, people who are just qualified by their own self-description, people who are qualified by some sort of third-party description, and then, actual decision makers all exist on this realm of equal consideration through social platforms, and we as a culture have to wade through all of it. James, I'm interested to know, where do you look to find your, I don't know what, like, nuggets of strategic truth or of just truth?
Good question.
I ask, while you're thinking about that, I ask because mainly, like, my newsletter is me working out my sources in public, not by any like design really. It's just the way that it all kind of figured out. But I ask people all the time, I'm like, where do you find your stuff, essentially?
I find my stuff in all everywhere, right? I've got social accounts on everything, subscribe to a million newsletters, and I have an email inbox set up specifically for 5 things that if I see something, I'll email it to myself.
Smart.
This is the most convoluted process. Hang on. I email it to myself, and then when I'm ready, I'll then go through the inbox, find something, drop it into a text file. Then I'll put comments next to the TXT file going, right, is there something here, or is it just a bonus thing where I have no opinion? And then I'll reorder it. And then normally on a Saturday morning, I write my Friday newsletter in bed with a cup of coffee and just dump it into button down and hit send.
Right. Okay,
gotcha. But I find the truth when I'm looking at it. It's like, basically, the whole thing is find something that makes me kind of tilt my head a little bit and look at it and go, that's interesting. And then I question myself a bit and go, why do I find that interesting? What is it in there that makes me go, oh, that's a bit different? And I try and articulate that into a sentence. And then I come back to it and go, well, is that true?
Right.
And then I dig. And then I dig and dig and dig. I had a reasonably, I don't want to say viral. I'm going to throw up. Famous? No. I mean, I had like a moment a few years ago when I was one of the first people to say, well, this metaverse stuff is a load of rubbish, right? But the only reason I got there was because I kept clicking on the link going, right, well, where does this data come from?
Right.
How many people did you interview? What were the questions when you asked in the interview? And every time I got to the bottom, it's like, you're talking about video games. You're not talking about this thing called metaverse.
Right.
But the only reason you're calling it metaverse is because you spent 25 years slagging off video games as the worst thing that's ever happened to teenagers ever. So let's just call it what it is. And then once we have called it what it is, because words are important, we should think about why we're using them. Then we can have a grown-up conversation about what you want to do in these gaming spaces.
Sure.
I love that.
But all of that, I remember people saying to me, how do you take this position when people are telling you you're wrong? I'm like, I'm looking at the data, and I enjoy being wrong. And this is the thing that drives my missus crazy, because it's like, I really like being wrong. It's like, what? Well, because that means I've learned something, and I've changed my opinion, and I've learned a new truth, challenged my assumption. And it's a really great thing to realize about yourself, because then it means you go, right, well, what else do I know that I think is right that could be wrong, and how do I go about solving that? So in answer to your question, where do I find it? I find things that make me interested. I figure out why I find them interesting, and then I get to the truth of that and see whether it's true or not by digging and digging and digging on that topic.
I thought you were going to say White Guy Strategy Twitter.
That's the other input.
Thank God that died, man. Come on. Now it's all on LinkedIn. But...
Yeah, exactly. It's moved over to LinkedIn. Well, Kyle, what I am curious also, and I'm just pulling up the list of stories here for a second. You talked about something, and this is why I love having these conversations with you every week, but you talked about something that I am willfully abstaining from, but that I recognize may be culturally important. So I'd love to hear the two of you talk about it. And that is Wicked 2.
I am impressed that you've been able to abstain and stay away from it.
My daughter, it's funny, Harper asked me, I said, you know, her mom was away on a work trip, and I was saying to her, yeah, you want to watch a movie or something like that? She's like, yeah, do you want to watch Wicked with me? Now, I don't get a lot of chances to spend alone time with my daughter and, you know, a bonding sense. And so I try to grab them when I can. And I just said, no.
Wow.
No.
My God.
Wow.
I'm not watching Wicked.
Why?
Sorry.
What was the reasoning?
And I asked,
Harper.
it's funny, her best friend Vicky came over later, and I said to Vicky, I was like, Vicky, do you think it's messed up that I wouldn't watch Wicked with Harper? And she goes, Vicky's like, yeah, but I can see why. And so I felt validated by the other 16-year-old. Thank you, Vicky. Anyway, gentlemen, the Wicked verse, the Wicked discourse.
I mean, there's a lot
happening.
I will caveat this that I also have not seen Wicked. I have not seen part 1. I have not seen part 2. I have been wanting to see part 1, and the only reason why I haven't seen it is because it's like 3 fucking hours long, and I refuse. And every time I go to sit down to watch it, I'm like, this is too long. I'm gonna fall asleep. So that is my caveat. However, I have been enjoying and find it really interesting how 2 years in a row, last year more than this year, it has really dominated a cultural conversation that has, in a way, sort of made Ariana Grande, but more so Cynthia Erivo, like cultural figures. And like Ariana Grande was always that, but it recontextualized her in a way, and it also catapulted Cynthia in a way, amongst other people in the cast. I'm forgetting his name. The British hunk. The gay British hunk, James something. No, I'm Jonathan Bailey. That's it. Jonathan Bailey. Him. Yeah, way off. Jonathan Bailey, but then also like Ethan Slater, and even like in ways like Michelle Yeoh and Jeff Goldblum. But like it did something that sort of went. It was almost sort of like capital H golden H Hollywood golden age film as reality show, which is something that like we haven't necessarily seen before. It was like a year and a half of like just like watching these people, actually more than that, because if we want to think about like the Ethan Slater Ariana Grande relationship and the public divorce, like this whole story goes for much of the 2020s, and like it's really interesting now in one way that like the movie, yes, paid off as far as a box office success, which is part and parcel of like the success of the reality show. But the reality show, I don't think really paid off, quote unquote, because like the final storylines are Ariana got COVID, like everybody's anorexic, and like, you know, like the movie isn't good. So like all of this stuff it's really interesting, and like I think the movie being not good doesn't matter because the reality show was so good, and because part 1 was so good. So like I think it's
not seen it.
I've not seen it, but I know looking at the sources of truth.
Looking at the data,
one is better than the other. Technically, does it matter? People went to see it, and people love these characters, so it doesn't matter.
So, James, I have you seen it?
So I'm wicked fresh.
Okay. So I don't know. Are you meaning you're from Boston? What does that mean?
We're recording on Monday, 24th of November. It was my birthday on the 21st of November on Friday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. We had friends around Friday night, and so Saturday was just recovering, and the kids were like, can we go and see the new Wicked movie? And I was like, I've not seen the first one. They're like, wow, we'll see the sequel Sunday, and we'll watch the first one today, Daddy. I was like,
wow.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
So
you did
Saturday
the opposite
afternoon
of what I
was
did. Yeah.
The original Apple TV, click, done. And then Sunday, we've got a cinema literally a 10-minute walk away from the house. So we just walked down and called it Sunday afternoon. And you know what? To your point, Kyle, I mean, with a slightly different mixture of ingredients, but to the same conclusion, me sitting down to watch a 3-hour movie is just not going to happen.
Right.
Like if I've got 3 hours to myself, there are levels on Hades 2 that I need to finish.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So my Switch 2 is sat there winking at me going, come on, there's a few more stars than Mario to find. And I will play video games. Broadly, I have raised 2 gamers, and I will play video games with my kids if we've got downtime. Like, so watching a movie is a rare treat. And I was like, you know what? Saturday I was hungover. Let's just watch a movie. I loved it. I think Ariana Grande is. I've always thought she was amazing. When she did Carpool Karaoke, you're like, oh, you're funny. Like you're actually funny as well. And then her comedic timing in this, I just thought was phenomenal. And then to your point again around like the way Cynthia's really been elevated out of theatre into like TV in Hollywood. Phenomenal. Again, she was turning up on Saturday Night TV here in the UK. And then you said capital H Hollywood. And I was like, yeah, you know why? Because it's not a Marvel movie. It's not a big superhero thing. It's two women like living their best lives at one point. It's a story that is as old as time that we all remember, have shared memories of. So there's so many reasons why. And I've not, genuinely, the reason why I hadn't seen the first one, I was trying to hold off to take the missus to go and see it in the West End and see it on stage before I saw the movie.
That's amazing.
And we hadn't got around to it. And I was like, well, the kids want to do it, so fine. We will go and see it eventually. But no, we're getting off point. Point is, I'm wicked fresh. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed them both. And it was kind of nice seeing it as a double bill.
Yeah.
And then we talk about the COVID thing, and then we talk about the stories. I want to know what kind of... we talk about cultural impact a lot when it comes to movies, right? You can read or listen to or watch critique around how nobody can really quite remember the Avengers theme tune. It's not exactly Star Wars. It's not exactly Indiana Jones. Yeah, see?
Wow.
Look at that face.
That is wild.
That's right.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, you kind of get there, but everyone can do Indiana Jones. Everyone can do Star Wars, right? No one
Not
can,
memorable.
Everyone can do Wicked. Started off as a musical, of course, but then there's always this thing about, oh, nobody's made a culture. Avatar didn't make a culture impact. Like, have you been out on Halloween? Like, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
But when we talk about cultural impact, I'm really interested to see the resonance of what Wicked has done. Would we have had Wicked at this level of success without Barbie, for argument's sake? Do you know what I mean? Like, what are the building blocks for this level of celebration of womanhood, celebration of power, really, and good, without there being men with hammers and super robot suits punching each other in the face?
Right. Because I think you're exactly right. And I think the thing that Wicked did really well is like it synthesized so many themes of the 2020s to deliver a product that was like right on time. Like it is technically like recycling old Hollywood, et cetera, et cetera. It is technically like a girl power movie in a lot of different ways. It technically sort of like took that sort of trend of character dressing and elevated it in a way that like people hadn't seen before. And that and then it also like you had stars who were growing up and that reality TV show element. You had the fucking like Hollywood classic dramas of like a divorce. I mean, multiple divorces technically, because there was a lot of debate around Lena Waithe and Cynthia Erivo and like, are they together anymore? Because it seems anyway. But it was a spectacle. And like that happened for Barbie, obviously, and actually got cut short because of the writer's strike, I believe, or actor strike, one or the other. But this one, it was like totally like no holds barred for nearly 2 years, if not more, of just like them cranking it. And like I remember last year when part 1 came out being like, holy shit, we got another year of them doing this and being exhausted in advance. But then like now that it's kind of behind us, like it wasn't too bad. And like there are again debates to be made about the second season, quote unquote, not doing as well as the first, but like it still held up. There are still so many Cynthia Erivo new gifts that are still coming out, new memes every day still.
No argument about it being a significant cultural contributor, a juggernaut even. But I guess to bring this conversation back a little bit to something that we said is as a means to sort of wrap things up, it also came in second this year in the North American box office.
Damn.
Behind Minecraft.
Full circle.
So gaming, it's so maybe there's that
entertainment franchise. We talk about
well, true.
Minecraft is an entertainment franchise, right?
No,
I'm surprised it's not a cartoon.
Right.
Yeah, no, 100%. I just mean in terms of its maybe Wicked's legacy will be to a certain degree in signaling a changing of the guard among entertainment franchises from capital H Hollywood, the traditionals of the past, Gone with the Wind and so on, to something that is more hybrid, multi-platform, and indicative of generations to come.
Right. Because really quickly, like, to that point, Wicked wouldn't have done as well if it wasn't for all the surrounding theatrics. Minecraft didn't need to do that. And, like, Minecraft obviously is a huge property and it did have huge stars, et cetera, but, like, I remember in the lead up to it, especially and James, I'm sure you have thoughts on this, like, the lead up to it, the trailers and everything, people are like, this is gonna suck. This isn't like the game. This isn't what I wanted. There's a this and there's a that. And, like, people were, like, shitting on it, only for it to fulfill their dreams and also add on to the canon, which was like, what more could you want?
It memed itself, right. It memed itself into existence as opposed to needing
the
to
YouTube
be
footprint
memed.
of Minecraft is a joke.
Huge.
Right? Like hundreds of millions of hours.
Trillions.
I remember going to a gaming exhibition at the Victoria and Albert Museum, and the way they talked about Minecraft there, they just dedicated a whole hall to Minecraft and just said, this is how big this is in association to the other games you've seen on the way in here, and used the space to communicate the size of this thing.
Right.
That's really interesting.
That is.
We could never have seen a TikTok about it, right? We could never have seen a trailer for it. It still would have done the numbers because the YouTube footprint. I just said as a throwaway comment, and I should have caught it because I'm surprised it's not a kids' TV cartoon. There is. It's the UGC that everybody makes on Minecraft every single day and publishes on YouTube. That is the kids' TV Saturday morning stuff. And I'm interested to see how that residual stuff happens after the fact, because with Wicked, you kind of want there to be a bit more. Like, where's the cartoon? Where's the thing where we can stay in touch with these characters? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
We had the real Ghostbusters growing up when I was a kid.
This is, look, this is maybe the to bring another conversation full circle. This is maybe that whole idea about world building, right? It's like the expectation is now that we do that world building so that these things can become, modular and go forward into the future under different stripes.
What a pro! Back to world building like that. Seamless.
I do that because we've got to wrap this episode number 36 of hip replacement. Our guest has been James Whatley, who again, writes an excellent newsletter called 5 Things on Friday, which usually comes out on Saturday. But is worth looking up and subscribing. James, where else can the kids find you, so to speak?
I'm Whatley Dude everywhere, so my surname with Dude on the end because I'm still trying to hold on to my youth. And 5thingsonfriday.com.
Fantastic. So Whatley Dude on socials, 5thingsonfriday.com is the newsletter. Look out for James. He is a sharp mind on all things advertising, marketing strategy, and culture. And we're looking forward to talking to you again, James, at some point in the future. But thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Cheers, Ben. Cheers, Carl. Thanks for having me on. It's been great. I've really enjoyed it.
Of course.
Good. Likewise. All right, guys. We'll catch you again next week.
Thanks.
Bye.